The aim of this presentation is to illustrate the ethical decision-making processes that I would make as a trainee psychologist in relation to the fictitious case of Max and my imagined clinical supervisor. Knapp and Associates define an ethical dilemma as the existence of two conflicting moral behaviours or judgments, both of which exhibit either good or bad outcomes, or in some cases, both. Ethical decision-making involves the consideration of explicit standards and laws with implicit morals and values. It is the mix of these implicit and explicit components that creates complexity, often referred to as shades of grey. However, complexity is also increased when considering varying ethical theories. Ethical decision-making models have been developed to reduce complexity and create consistency of ethical dilemma resolution. For the purpose of this assignment, an adapted version of Kuchar and Keith Spiegel will be used. This page demonstrates stage 1, stating the ethical dilemma. In the case of Max, it is demonstrating propriety by regularly updating contractual agreements versus showing integrity by adhering to advanced proper financial consideration. Stage 2 involves consulting professional guidelines as a potential resolution tool. The Australian Psychological Society's Code of Ethics incorporates ethical principles and minimum standards of professional behaviour. It is published for the benefit of psychologists and members of the public. The code promotes general ethical principles of respect, propriety, and integrity, where minimum expectations of ethical standards are derived. Beyond the scope of this assessment exists a third layer of ethical guidelines. My client, Max, has associated the success of his ongoing treatment and professional respect towards me with an increase of my standard fees previously stated in the informed consent. This action links to the overarching principle of proprietary standard B3, professional responsibility. According to standard B3, it is ethical to provide competent, appropriate services that are safe and delivered only while necessary. When considering Max's insistence to pay an increased fee, standard B3H could provide the ethical mechanism for me to collaborate with Max to review and update contractual arrangements. This is, however, in conflict with standard B3 is standard C 6.6 of financial arrangements, reinforced by the principle of integrity. Standard C 6.2 endorses honesty, advanced financial arrangements that avoid adverse influences. The frequency of payment and fee-based ethical dilemmas within psychology profession has been illustrated by Pope and Associates, Sullivan, and Zhang and Associates. During stage 3, I reflect on how my values may influence my decision-making. Objectivity. My desire to gain experience and respect may override my ethical perspective, therefore causing me to disregard the potential for malpractice. Furthermore, my interest and passion regarding workforce opportunities and equal pay for women could tempt me to accept the increased rate. My values likely to influence my decision-making include making a difference and understanding people and behaviours and systems. This may influence my decision to continue seeing Max. However, my value of honesty is likely to override this. I am aware of my gender biases could impact my positive regard for Max. I can draw on 49 years of experience to remain focused on the decision-making process, in particular to seek opinions of those more experienced in my chosen field of psychology. In relation to culture, I am a white, middle-aged Anglo-Saxon and likely to have unconscious biases. A recent uncovering took place during Lifeline Crisis Support Worker training, where during a role play, I failed to ask the required safety questions of a male experiencing financial and psychological abuse. Step 4 in the adapted KK model is identifying the rights and vulnerability of involved parties, in this case, Max and me. Max's rights include to be shown respect, justice, and dignity, expect and receive competent financial services, psychological safety and trust, access to help, have an opinion and a freedom of expression, autonomy, privacy and confidentiality, and the legal rights, including a notification lodgement. Max's vulnerabilities include substance abuse, potential depression and anxiety, likely dependence for help, safety, unknown due to insufficient information, however, should still be identified, and power imbalances, considering that I am the professional in this case. And of course, exploitation. My rights and vulnerabilities, in particular my rights to operate in my qualified profession, gain practical experience, respect, mitigate my professional risk, autonomy and self-actualization, and the access to qualified supervision, and also to place a value on my professional services within the range of industry standards. My vulnerabilities include my inexperience, my potential reduced uncertainty tolerance, risk of notification to APRA, intrinsic questioning of my competence, power imbalances due to being female, my social status, and trainee position. Stage 5 includes the listing of possible resolutions, in which case option A is linked to standard B 11.3, the transfer of services to a more experienced psychologist. And option B is linked to standard B 11.5. It's a 3-step process should it be determined that I'm incompetent in providing the required service and the client is no longer benefiting. It includes explaining action to safeguard the client's ongoing safety and an offer to help the client, Max in this case, find alternative services. Stage 6 involves possible consequences. In option A, the transfer of services, I list positive and negative consequences. In the option without consultation and informed consent, I hand Max over to a more experienced psychologist who is more likely to charge more, perhaps not equivalent to his rate, and may gain his respect. However, the negative consequences I recognized are distress and confusion due to lack of autonomy, cessation of treatment, he may or may not continue treatment, and a potential for a formal complaint. Option B is fundamentally different in that it has a consultative and process-based framework, is a mix of deontology and teleology perspectives, in that it recognizes the duty of the psychologist to do the most right processes of actions while also considering the best outcome. Option B recognizes the duty of respect, communication, autonomy, and responsibility, values and virtues I hold close to heart and mind. Furthermore, in option B, Max is not treated as a means to an end. The final option is the resolution and steps to take place. In this case, it is option B, the 3-step termination process. In a subsequent appointment with Max, I would acknowledge that he is not benefiting from my services. I would establish his ongoing welfare and safety, including self-harm and/or suicide risk, and an appropriate safety plan. I would offer to assist in the search for alternative services. I would revisit the informed consent, in particular to privacy, confidentiality, including disclosure requirements for future providers, and the release of information to clients. Finally, I would document my EDM process and the outcome of the termination session. Thank you very much.